Hello and welcome to this Procreate tutorial on how to draw a kawaii, which is the Japanese word for cute, pumpkin. So basically we're going to create a base pumpkin and then we're going to look at how to make different faces that you can use for your pumpkin. For example, here I have a smiley face that I can change to, or you can change the eyes. So let's take those eyes off and add those eyes, or you can take those eyes off and add these cute eyes. So really you can kind of transform your same pumpkin into different kinds of kawaii faces. So let's get started. All right, so we want to go into the gallery and we want to make a new canvas. So we're just going to keep it simple and choose screen size. All right, and then you're going to need to have the palette of colors that I'm using. This tutorial uses entirely default brushes that come with Procreate, so no need to purchase or download anything. And don't worry about downloading the palette. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put all the hexadecimals here so that you can create the hexadecimal colors in the same order with the same palette that I have here. You can see I've named it Pumpkin. So the way you create a palette is that you press the plus and you say create new palette, and then you go here, your palette's up here, sorry, you can name it by clicking there, you can type the new name, and then what you can do is go to value, and then here is your hexadecimal, right? So you just type right in there the different numbers that I show you, and then once the color pops up, for instance this orange now has popped up here because the hexadecimal for that is there, it's F3801A. So what you can do then is you have that up there, you just tap here in your palette and it pops up. So try to recreate the palette that I have here. Right here, pumpkin, we have a dark brown, a light orange, a medium orange, a darker orange, a reddish orange, kind of a burnt umber, I suppose, color, a light green, a dark green, a gray, and then your three colors for your kawaii, which is just black, white, and this pink color. So go ahead and create your palette, pause the video, the hexadecimals will be right here. Okay, so now that your palette is created, you're going to go up here to the brushes and you're going to choose the calligraphy monoline brush, okay? And you can see here in the layers, we are currently working on layer 1. Our background color is white, but I'll show you how to switch that later. So we're working on layer 1. You choose calligraphy monoline. You want the opacity to be set at 100, and you want the brush size to be set around 20. If you don't get exactly 20, that's fine. If it's 21 or 19, it doesn't really make such a big difference. The color we're going to use is this third color over, 2, 3. It's this orange. You can see it reflected up here in the corner in the circle. And what you're going to do is you're going to first draw a quick shape oval. So you draw a shape like this, but then you hold it and it'll create a nice oval for you. Now if you want your pumpkin to be a different shape than that long oval, or you want it to be taller or fatter, you can go to edit shape and you can just pull here, you can squash it, right? I kind of want mine to be about here and here. All right, and that's about the size that I want for mine. Now I don't like where it's sitting on the canvas, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here to the transform. That's that arrow, and I can now pull to the outside and move it around. I can rotate it a little if needed. All right, and when I'm happy with where that's placed, all I need to do is click that transform button or arrow again, and then I'm going to drag my color in like that. So now on the first layer you can see we have this orangey oval. What we're going to do now is go to the magic wand and we're going to use the liquify right here, liquify. I'm going to click on liquify. You want to make sure it says push. The size I have is at 62, the pressure is at max, 0 distortion, 0 momentum. And I'm going to use liquify to push my shape kind of to here. It's a little wonky. There we go. If you don't like how it's turning out, you can always click here, reset. It'll go back. So I'm just going to kind of pull it. There we go. I kind of want a shape like that. And then because I want to get to the bottom, I'm just gonna pinch and push up. There we go. Kind of that shape. There we go, pretty happy with that. There we go. Now, a fun trick is if you want your canvas to go back to the original size, you pinch like that and it pops back out. So now that I'm done with my magic wand, I click that out, right? And now I have kind of, I guess it's a bit, not exactly pumpkin-y shape, but that's where we want to be right now. Okay, so now we're ready to add a new layer, and we're going to click right here on layers, and we're going to press plus for a new layer. And then we're actually going to help us tell the difference between the different layers that we're making. We're going to go ahead and pick here on pumpkin this light orange color to draw another oval. We're staying with our calligraphy monoline brush. We're going to draw another oval kind of like this. Again, we're going to hold it to quick shape it. All right. We're going to drag that orangey color into the middle. Boop. And now you can see in layers we've got this shape and this shape. What you want to do now is go back to that magic wand and liquefy it. So it kind of there, like that. Push it up a little bit. Maybe we want to make it a little chubbier here. Doesn't have to be exactly the same on either side, because again, it's a pumpkin. So there we go, pinch and back. So we're done now with layer. Oops, didn't want that. If you ever do make an accidental mark like that, you just press this little go back button, undo button right here, and there you go. All right, so now we have layer 1 and layer 2 completed. So we're going to add a third layer, but we're actually going to add the layer in between layer 1 and layer 2. So what I want you to do is click layer 1 right here, and then you're going to press plus to add that third layer, but see how it pops in above the layer that you had selected. So we want it to be in between the two layers. And for this one, we want to use this kind of bright orange color here, okay? Because we use this for our first layer, this for our second, now this is for our third. Now we will be changing these later, but this is just to help us differentiate between the layers. Still with that calligraphy monoline brush, you're gonna go underneath, so you won't be able to see it, and you're gonna create kind of a shape here, go around, create another shape here, and then join back up, all right? And one cool thing you can do is you can actually pop out this layer so you can see that it has joined together, all right? And what we wanna do is drag this orange in, okay? And then we are going to use that liquefy brush again. We do love that liquefy effect. And we can kind of push it here and push it here. So you're going to use that liquefy brush here and here, push it out. Again, you can pinch it to help you see what you're doing, right? And then when you're happy with that, right, you've got kind of these little bumps, you can turn off that magic wand, pinch, boop. Make sure you can see that third layer again, and now you have kind of a pumpkin-y shape. I kind of want to go in and play a bit with layer 2 now that I see layer 1 behind it. So back to liquefy, and I'm going to push it up a little bit. Push this down a little bit. So now I can see I kind of have my pumpkin-y shape. Now again, we're going to change the color of these, but for right now, this is where we want to be. So now we're going to play around with some shading. What we're going to do is we are going to change our brush. So go to materials and then scroll down to noise brush right here. Again, these are only free brushes. With your noise brush, you want the opacity to be at 90. So here's our opacity up to 90. And then our brush size will be at 50. So let's go to about 50. So what we're going to do, it's going to be tricky to get there. What we're going to do is we are going to go to layer 1, and we are going to click on that layer and turn on alpha lock. Alpha lock is really cool because it will only color now on this layer. So it won't color on the background color, and that means you can color outside of the lines, but it will only show up on your layer there, so only on this orange part to the outside. So what we're going to do is go into our palettes, and we are going to choose this nice brown color here, right there. And we are going to start shading the bottom. So if you watch here, look, I can go like this to the outside and see how the shade starts to appear right there. Kind of, it's only going there on that. I'm gonna do a little bit here and kind of like tuck it into the corners, because that's where the shade would be, right? No light's getting there. A little bit to the outside there. And then we're going to change that color, and we are going to pick kind of this nice red-orange color right here, this fourth color over. And we're going to use that to kind of give a little more orangey flavor there to the middle part of our pumpkin. And then once we're happy with that, we will go here to, I have so many orangey colors, I keep losing my pumpkin color. Right here, we're going to go to this light orange color, and we are going to go here and use that to lighten up and add some slightly glowiness to the top of our pumpkins. See that nice mix of shading there? But I want a little bit more of that orange here. This one right here, a little bit more, so you can kind of mix and match based on how you like it. It is your pumpkin after all. So just, there we go. I'm pretty happy with that. Maybe a little bit more here. Boop, boop. All right, so there we go. Layer one looking nice. Okay, so now we're going to continue shading our pumpkin. So we're going to go to layer 3 right here, which is kind of like your sandwiched layer. And as I told you before, we are going to change the color inside so that we are having kind of a more uniform pumpkin. So we're going to grab this orange right here, and we're going to drag that into our pumpkin. So see how we're kind of starting to match it. And we're going to go ahead and do the same thing again. We're going to go to the layer 3, which is really our sandwich layer. We're going to turn on that alpha lock so that we make sure we're only coloring onto the parts that we want. And then you are going to go ahead and pick those same colors again. So this brown for the shading. We'll do a little shading underneath. Still have that noise brush on. All right, we're adding a little shading here, a little bit more in here where there's some shadows. Shading. And then we're going to go ahead and pick some of that nice brighter orange right there. Do a little bit of middle oranging up. Really, it's how you like it. How do you want it to look? All right. And then for the lighter parts, we're going to pick that light orange and go here to kind of lighten up the top. And really play around with it and see how you like your pumpkin to look. Just a little more shade there. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. All right, and then I can go here and I have to remember to turn on the alpha lock. Otherwise, we will be coloring outside the lines. So let's start again. I have that middle orange. I'm gonna drop that in. Then I'm going to go here to that brighter reddish orange, and I'm gonna do some more shading here just in the front of my orangey pumpkin here. Kind of boost it a bit. There we go. Now we go to our brown, and now that I've turned my alpha lock on, I won't be making such a mess. Not as much shading maybe, because that is the front of our pumpkin. And then we want to use that light yellowish orange at the top here until you're happy with how your pumpkin is looking. So now we're going to create the stem, and to do that we need to add yet another new layer. So new layer there. And you are going to use the calligraphy brush pen. So you're going to go here to brushes, you're going to go to calligraphy, and you're going to go here down to the brush pen. Now for this brush, you want the opacity to be up at 100, and you want the brush size to be 10. So right, it's always a bit fiddly, just get as close as you can, not the end of the world if it's 12. We want to switch to this nice green color here, this medium green, and we are actually going to move the layer below, but I'm going to start with the layer above so you can see the shape that you're creating. Okay, so don't worry if it looks a bit weird right now. So you're going to use this and you're going to draw up kind of like a stem shape. Ooh. I don't like that. That's very ugly. Let's try again. That's kind of cuter. And we want to make sure it's all solid shape. Again, not great, so I'm going to start again. That happens sometimes. There we go. Now I like that shape. So now you want to drag that green color in to fill it. There we go. And then what you're going to do is you are going to take that layer and send it back. Okay, so I use my finger for this. I just find it easier. You hold it, you drop it back behind the pumpkin, and now there is our shape. If you don't like exactly the way it looks, you can always go to the transform tool. You can squish it. See, it looks a bit better squished. You bring it down. You can also move it around. Remember to be on the outside of the box if you're moving it, because if you're trying to move it from the inside, it changes the shape. So I'm pretty happy with that. So I'll get out of my transform tool, and now I have the beginnings of my stem. So now we want to add some shading to our stem here. So you're going to go back to brushes, and you're going to go down to textures, and you're going to pick the one at the very bottom, the grunge brush. And the color you're going to use is this darker green right here. It's almost a blackish color. Again, we want to turn on the alpha lock for this layer because we only want to color onto the green part of the layer. And then I'm just going to start on the outside. Oh, I forgot to tell you about my opacity and my size. That's very important. The opacity is 60. It's about 60. So we need to bring that down, undo that. Opacity is 60. And my brush size is, I'm going to go ahead and use 10. Let's bring that down. Maybe a bit bigger. Maybe I'll do 30 actually, because I'm looking at the comparison and I actually like that about right there. Then you're going to kind of go to the outside to add the shading and the texture. A little bit like that. Yeah, just add a little patterny type look. There we go. Make it look a little deeper. Now we're going to add some lines to our pumpkin, just to the pumpkin stem, just to give it a little bit more realistic look. I'm going to go back to my calligraphy brush, leave it where it is at the size 10, and I'm just going to kind of use this to make some lines. If I don't like it, I just go back. Nope, that's pretty bad. There we go. If you kind of lift it, it'll give kind of a flick. There we go. Now we've got some lines, so I'm pretty happy with that. You could go back in with your grunge brush and cover a little more if that is what you wanted to kind of do to add a little bit more depth. That was in texture, sorry. Down in grunge, you could just kind of go over it a little more. Kind of helps to blend in those lines you just did. There we go. Pretty happy with that, so we'll stop there. One fun thing you could try is to use the brush pen in calligraphy to add some curly cues. So I can keep that dark green. Maybe, oh, that's right, I'm in alpha lock. So let's add a new layer just for the curly cues in case I don't want them there forever. I'll add a couple curly cues. Need to move that up actually because otherwise it's not going to be visible. Come on. Hold. There we go. Otherwise it's not going to be visible on top. There we go. There's a little curly cue. Yeah. Might work for you. You don't like it. Yeah, that looks a little bizarre, but you see where I'm going with it. So if curly cues is something you want to add to your pumpkin, you can experiment with that. Yep. So I can always take that layer off if I don't want to see them. If you're happy with how your pumpkin's looking now, what you can do is click on layers, and you can merge the layers by pinching them like this. See? Boop. And they become one layer. So what we're going to do now is we are going to create a shadow. So what we do is we go here, we pull across like that on the layer, and we want to duplicate, okay? And then we're going to click down here in layer 1, because that is the one we are going to use to make our shadow, okay? So you're going to choose the dark brown, which is this one here, and you are going to go back to your layer, and you are going to click here and press fill layer, and because you've picked that dark brown before, it will fill the layer. So now you can see here on the layer, it's dark brown. All right, so we're going to use this layer to make our shadow, and the way we're going to do that is we are going to stay active in this layer, okay, but we need to make sure to turn off the alpha lock or the shadow won't work. Okay, so we're now going to be in this layer, and we are going to go to the transform tool, and you need to make sure the layer is off of alpha lock. You do not want alpha lock on. So when you've done that, then you can go here, you go to the transform, and you want to move this kind of down and to the right. So it's kind of like a shadow, however big you want your shadow to be. I'm not going to go with a big one today. And then you are going to switch over to the magic wand and choose Gaussian blur. And with Gaussian blur here on the top, you can slide to make your blur different percentages. So here, I'm going to slide. There I have a shadow. There's my shadow basically gone. But I want my shadow to be right about here, so I guess I stopped at about 10%. And then if you decide you actually want that to be further out, you can still go back to the transform tool and move it further out if you want more of a shadow. So now it's time to add our cute kawaii face to our pumpkin. I'm right now active on the orange pumpkin layer, layer 1, my little curly cues, which are optional. Again, I can pop them on and off, are there sitting on top. So I'm going to create my face right here in between the two. That means you have to have layer 1 active so that when you add the new layer, it will pop in above. Don't worry about the layer names. I mean, just kind of pay attention to what's on there. So with that layer, we are going to create some eyes. And the way we're going to do that is to choose black right here. That's just solid black. And then we're going to go back to our classic monoline brush, and we are going to draw a shape that's like a circle. We're going to use that quick shape again, like that. Okay, hold it there and it'll shape up. If you want a perfect circle, you can always hold your finger there, right there on the side, and that will create a perfect circle, but I don't really need a perfect circle. I'm just going to go there. I'm going to go ahead and drag the fill in, and then I'm going to go back to that liquefy tool here to kind of push it into more of a shape that I'm looking for. There we go. Don't worry if it moves around. Come on, boop, boop, boop. Because you can always use that transform tool to move it back. There we go. So remember, don't grab the inside because it'll stretch it. We don't necessarily want to do that unless you do. Right? In this case, maybe you do. Actually, it is making kind of a cuter shape. But if you want to move it, you grab it on the outside. So there we have that. So I'm pretty happy with that eye shape. So I'm going to get out of transform. I'm going to keep working on the same layer, but I'm going to switch to white. And I'm going to zoom in so I can see a bit better. And I'm just going to draw those cute white circles for reflection. So that, holding it to quick shape it, dropping in the white. And one of the things you can see is it doesn't perfectly fill it, so you might need to go in with your monoline brush. Just clean it up a bit. I'm just going to add a couple in this one, maybe just a little one here. There we go. So I'm pretty happy with that eye. I'm going to zoom back out so I can see. Oh, that is cute. And I don't want to have to make it twice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually duplicate this layer. Duplicate. And now I have two. And then I go to transform again, and I pull it over, so now I have 2 of those cute little eyes. Click off transform. There we go. So now that I have those cute little eyes, I'm going to add some pink cheeks. Adding a new layer, I'm switching the color to pink, sticking with that monoline brush. Basically doing a similar thing where I make the shape, hold it for a more oval shape, quick shape, there we go. And go to transform, I can move it, on transform, there we go. Moving it, stretching it how I like, moving it over, dragging in the pink, zooming in to make sure it's fully filled, looks good. I like it, pinch, pinch, there we go. You could go in and use the liquify tool if you wanted something a little bit different. And then with this one, I'm actually going to go into the layer, I'm going to duplicate it, and then in transform, I will scoot it over, but notice it's not facing the right way. So one thing I can do is I can go here and transform and I can flip it horizontally, and I can pop it there. And once I'm happy with those, I can actually go into my layers, pinch the 2 cheeks together so they're now 1 layer, pinch the 2 eyes together so they're now 1 layer, and I can move on to my mouth. So at this point I want to add a mouth to my pumpkin. There's lots of options. What I usually do is I go to Google and I look up kawaii faces. You can make lots of different choices. I showed you some in the beginning, but there's lots of different kawaii faces that you can get inspiration from. I'm going to stay on my monoline brush. I'm going to go back to black, and this time I'm going to make a straight line holding with quick shape, and I'm going to make a curved mouth holding with quick shape. Now you notice that it's not perfect, and if I go to fill, watch what happens. It fills everything. That's no good. So I actually am going to use my monoline brush and fill in that spot. And then I'm going to scoot on over. Now see, if I just use my finger, it draws, so I don't want to do that. So I'm going to grab it kind of with 2 fingers, pinching and moving. That looks pretty good. I'm going to draw a little tongue shape here. Now I don't like how that came out because I have this weird little spot, so I'm going to go back, try again. There we go. That's all right. I'm going to drag in my black there. I'm going to drag in pink for the tongue. And there I have a cute kawaii mouth. So my pumpkin's looking really cute. Again, you can use those layers to change the eyes as I did in my previous pumpkin, which I can show you real quick. So I don't have to redo all of this. There's my pumpkin. That was my pumpkin I practiced on before I did this video. I've got lots of different eyes. I've got winky eyes. I've got this kind of cute smiley mouth. I've got these kind of googly eyes. So that is entirely up to you how you want to make your pumpkin. Now one thing you might want to do is change the background, and that's really quite easy. You click here on the background color and you can just move around on this disc to change your background. Now up here, these are the colors. The reason it's not changing my background is because the middle is showing the tint, and if I move the tint around, then you get more colors. So I could have a nice blue, a green, a yellow, an orange, red, just kind of experiment with different colors. You might quite like this purple. Looks cool and spooky. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Again, lots of fun to make, not so tricky to do, and everything was free, the brushes, the palette. You didn't have to download a single thing. Thanks for stopping by.